time has come to pass on the mantle of leadership.
Come January, Texas will have its first new governor in more than a decade. As Governor Perry's final term ticks to an end, how will Texans remember his time in office? Welcome back to State of Texas In Depth. His Texas legacy is likely on Governor Perry's mind as he considers another run for president. This morning, we take a closer look with Ian Mitra from our partner at the Texas Tribune and Eric Greeter from Texas Monthly. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So your organization has just been finishing up a 10-part series. Tell me about it.
Right, so we're just wrapping up a series called Falling Behind. We were kind of taking a closer look at the Texas Miracle and different aspects. I mean, it's been reported quite a bit about how we've been adding jobs in the state, how things have been going well for business, and we talked about the benefits of the oil boom to the state. So we took a closer look at some different aspects. We looked at some aspects of higher education, public education. We're also looking at some issues in terms of environment, and those are just some other indicators of how the state's doing to see if the miracle has really kind of spread across more than just the main things that we hear about.
When we talk about the Texas Miracle, that's really what the governor is promoting, you know, the great things that he and his administration have done, right?
Right, and he's been selling that, you know, across the country, going across different states and recruiting businesses to come here and saying, you know, we have, you know, we're very business friendly, and so that's kind of what the Texas Miracle is all about.
Education has also been kind of a big part of what you guys have been reporting, but it seems like there are a lot of education controversies right now out of the last couple of legislative sessions, from testing to teacher pay.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the controversies emerging is even whether we should have public schools at all. I mean, we've seen a little bit of that on certain segments, and that's a critical issue for the whole state because we have 5 million children in Texas public schools. So I think, you know, the series has been great, and it's an interesting area of inquiry because on some fronts, like on jobs fronts, you see Governor Perry's tenure has coincided with a great time for the state. A lot of growth in various income sectors, various industries, really across the state. But then, partly because of that growth, we're not seeing commensurate growth in state resources like roads, schools, higher ed. So I think there's plenty of work to be done and room for improvement.
So I think it really just depends on how you read the Texas Miracle.
Right. It's a miracle for a lot of the state, you know, in terms of the economy as well, but in terms of, you know, keeping up with this, you know, with the growth of the state in terms of traffic, in terms of education, you know, the growth doesn't there may be still some work to do.
And I think it depends too on what you compare it to. So I think that if you compare Texas to, say, California on a lot of metrics, well, those are big states. They both have big populations, diverse populations, young populations. How are we doing compared to other big states like that? On a lot of metrics, a surprising number of metrics, really, we do better than other big states, including things like schools, which I think people are surprised by. But really, I think the better question for us as Texans who care about the future of our state is, are we doing well enough for Texas itself? Are we where we want to be on those issues?
And building on that, building on the demographic changes as well. Are we preparing for that as well? That's a big thing for our state as we're moving into the future.
You talked about traffic a little bit. I know in November voters are going to be possibly approving, you know, more highway funding. Is that something you really see as what the next governor will have to focus on, is roads and infrastructure?
I think so. I think that roads, water, public education, public schools, higher education, community colleges, those are going to be big areas of interest for the next governor, and I hope the next legislature. I mean, those are not, that's not unchecked growth of the state. That's not, I think, overreaching on the part of the government. That's providing adequate resources for the population we have and the workforce we have and want to have in the future. Steve?
Yeah, and traffic is, you know, that's something you see every day here, and what the constitutional amendment we're voting on in Texas in November is only going to fund, if passed, is only going to fund part of what, you know, leaders say is needed to maintain current traffic congestion levels. So there's, just because even if that passes, that still is not going to solve the problem really for a lot of folks in terms of those long commutes.
And this past week, we've been talking a lot about the border and immigration because the president has been here and Governor Perry has really been trying to make a case for more border security and more resources down by Mexico. Do you feel like that this is really setting him up for another run in 2016?
I think the politics of the whole situation are just bad on all sides. I think there's a lot of politics on both sides right now. I think what is happening on the border is a pretty serious crisis. It's a short-term crisis, and it is also going to be a longer-term crisis. But at the moment, I would say there's definitely a need for more support for the law enforcement and the humanitarian workers who are working on the border right now to make sure those kids are in safe conditions and to make sure that the Border Patrol can still do what it usually does while they're responding.
It sounds like the president already kind of had a plan going forward to ask Congress for more money for a lot of that stuff. So is that why he was so open to hearing what Governor Perry had to say this time and saying, yeah, I'll hear it all, you just go back to Republicans and try to get them on board with it?
Right, and you heard him say that. He said he agreed with Perry on a lot of the points that he was bringing up at their meeting in Dallas this week. And so I think the president is kind of on board with a lot of this stuff. He's just having trouble getting anything passed financially through Congress, and that's the real problem here for him. Is but Perry still wants him to get down here, and Perry's shown a lot of leadership on this. He's been really kind of stepping out and talking about how much of a crisis this is, and really calling out Washington on really drawing more attention to the issue.
So based on where he is leaving his legacy, who can have the best chance of picking that back up and running it with it? Wendy Davis, Greg Abbott, who do you think?
I would say Greg Abbott. I'm just guessing here, but
I think Greg Abbott's campaigned quite a bit on continuing the legacy that Perry's built of the Texas Miracle. Attorney General Abbott's been saying that things have been going well, and he's going to continue to keep it going and keep going the way things are going in Texas. He wants to maintain that, so I think it works well for Abbott.
Hi, and Erica, thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you for joining us for State of Texas In Depth. NBC's Meet the Press is coming up at 9. You can join us every Sunday morning at 8:30 right here on KXAN for complete coverage of Texas politics.